Hello, my name is Dione and I am Vice Chair of the Youth Voices Leadership Team. Welcome to Season 2 of our Leadership is Language series, where we are exploring further how we can show leadership by the language and communication styles that we use. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Wiradjuri people, traditional custodians of the land on which I'm speaking to you from today, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. It gives me great pleasure to introduce our next guest in the Leadership is Language series, David Carter. From Deckhand to CEO, David Carter has dedicated his entire career to advancing and promoting the seafood industry. The company he now leads, Austral Fisheries, is at the cutting edge of navigating the challenging waters of sustainable primary production, commanding a fleet of high-performance craft using environmentally responsible fishing practices, battling piracy on the high seas, building global seafood brands like Glacier 51, and experimenting with the latest blockchain technology to prove the provenance of its catch. In 2013, David was entered into the National Seafood Industry Hall of Fame, and since then, he's led Austral Fisheries to achieve independent sustainability certifications through the Marine Stewardship Council, and was the driving force behind Austral becoming the first seafood company in the world to achieve carbon neutral certification under the Australian Government Carbon Neutral Program. David's been described as an authentic leader and ahead of his time, and today he's sharing his wisdom about the language of leadership with us. Welcome, David.
Nice intro, Dione. Thank you.
Let's just kick things off, David, and let's take it back and start back when you were a kid. Were you born curious, or is it something that you've developed?
Ooh, killer question straight out of the box. No, I think I've always been a bit curious. Just like all good boys, wanted to know how things worked. And you just mentioned that. I remember early days, my dear old dad thought it'd be a good idea to give the lads an engineering project. So he bought two ancient side valve Morris Major vehicles, and he figured it would take us all summer to fix them up and get them going. And I think 3 days later we had these things flogging around the back block, and he had no peace. So it was like maybe that was the beginning.
He might have told you one morning that for whatever reason they'd stopped working and had to tinker with them himself, did he?
That's right. Yeah, so there's something terrible's happened.
Yeah, you can't use them anymore.
Yeah. No, always been curious, Dione. I think, that's kind of whether it's born nature or nurture. I'm not sure.
No, that's a great characteristic to have. And so from working from Deckhand and now through to CEO of Austral, throughout your career, I'd imagine you would have worked with many different people. Could you tell us about a couple of those people that have been instrumental during your career and how?
Ooh, that's pretty easy, really. I remember I'd finished a science degree, so this was in Melbourne, and we had a sort of a marine zoology major sort of flavour to it, and it was at a time when Australia was declaring the 200-mile exclusive economic zone, and I thought it'd be a good idea to stop studying. I didn't think there was much future with being a PhD or any of that, no disrespect, so I wrote a lot of letters, and about 40 different letters to fishing companies all over the country, and the only two replies I got were from Perth. So my mum, as good mums are, stumped up for a ticket to get me to the interview, and this particular interview was with a chap that went on to become my significant mentor and sort of life's coach, a guy by the name of Murray France, and I sat down for a morning meeting with him about 7 o'clock one morning, and I don't think I said anything for 2 hours. He did everything that was needed, and ever since then, I've sort of been able to stand on his shoulders. So his example of of generosity and wisdom, insight, have been the shoulders upon which I stand. And I think the other important thing about good mentors is the ability, and certainly the ability he had, to see in me things I did not see in myself. I think that's a good test.
Yeah, definitely. Just someone else's perspective of you and where you're at various stages in life, I would imagine.
True that.
Lovely. Thanks for sharing with us about Murray. So in a past interview that I was watching that you did, you made the comment about your work that it's not all about the fish, it's about people too. Mm-hmm. And that really resonated with me. And people and collaboration specifically, I would imagine, has been so important to your successes. For example, with Austral's support of sustainability alongside conservation groups, such as in the Marine Stewardship Council, and the unique collaboration between Austral and Sea Shepherd to eliminate unregulated longline vessels from Antarctic waters. Firstly, the language and leadership used to strike up a relationship with Sea Shepherd. Can you tell me a bit more about how you approached that one?
There's probably a little bit of just backstory to that, but I think fisheries and certainly your agricultural audience would appreciate that if we want to move industries, then we've got to bring stakeholders along for the ride. So there's limits to what we can do on our own, and then there's things that have to be done together. And that's certainly been a feature of fisheries. So, for example, in our prawn fishery, we spent 25 years trying to reduce the number of boats in that fleet from when I began was nearly 300 boats until finally in 2007 we achieved a fleet size of 52 boats. And that was an extraordinary, painful and difficult period, but in the fiery furnace of that journey, you learn the art of compromise, of respect for the other party, and listening for their concerns, and then a capacity to recognise that it was all about progress, and a shared vision to some extent. And so I think we brought that to a lot of our relationships subsequently. Whether it's been in marine park debates with conservation NGOs, or with more recently the collaborations in tackling illegal fishing, the key piece has been about able to certainly respect the other party, but then be in a position where you have a shared commitment. And so it was with Sea Shepherd really, where for a long time we'd probably had 15 years battling illegal fishing in the Southern Ocean, building alliances both within industry and government, and with the NGO community, and that you do build up some credibility around that. So actions speak louder than words. And then later in the piece, Sea Shepherd arrived on the scene, and that was a bit scary. It was a bit scary because they did come with a certain reputation, but very quickly, to the great credit of Jeff Hansen, who's the Australian CEO, he came to realise that we were serious about eliminating illegal fishing, and in that collaboration, we saw a powerful synergy. And so the seminal moment was at the end of a 110-day pursuit of a Sea Shepherd vessel against with an illegal vessel, a vessel called the Thunder. We participated in that operation off the west coast of Africa, and the simple message to our people was, I know this sounds a bit weird, but Sea Shepherd are doing the job that we should be doing, or that government should be doing, and I can't fault their commitment, and they deserve our support. And so it was that a successful operation on the water developed into a whole range of other collaborations, to the point where we agree and collaborate in terms of building a coalition, or at least a voice for for lawful fishing operations, that is finding where we can ways to oppose illegal fishing. We have a common voice around the need for ambition in climate and a shared interest in removing plastic pollution from our oceans. And so it's like you say to people, people say, well, that's a bit odd, but what's not to love, right? You know, we want our oceans clean. We don't want illegal fishing. We want to uphold the rule of law, and we want to do something about climate. It's like apple pie and motherhood. It's like just can't miss.
Yeah, they go together for sure. And yeah, as you said, really beautiful to find those synergies between the organisations. So if you could define it, what would you say that you're most proud of that's come out of Austral's relationship with Sea Shepherd?
It's curious. Like the bit that's, there's some interesting odd things. For example, I think we've had a role in having them more broadly recognised by the Australian government. They have been wrestling for a long time to get charity status, and you know, there were some reasons early in their adventure, but the work they're doing now in West Africa is exemplary, and the idea that Sea Shepherd, with their skill and commitment and their hardware, that is boats and runabouts, are able to go into these poorer West African nations where they have no capacity to police their fisheries regulations. They can embark local fisheries officers. They can train them in identifying illegal vessels. They can facilitate embarking those officers onto illegal vessels, and then in the process of evidence collection and prosecution, they can make an enormous difference. And so, whilst a lot in NGO land are out sucking their teeth and wringing their hands in five-star hotels in first world capital cities, talking about how this and that needs to be done, the Sea Shepherd guys are doing it, and they're making a real difference. The message that sends to other illegal vessels in the area is sufficient to see illegal fishing pressure dramatically reduced, fish stocks return to the inshore net fisheries, and the livelihood for artisanal fishermen recover to the point where once again they can send their kids to school and repair their homes and have a decent life. So that's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, there's lots of good in there as well. So there's been a lot of firsts for Austral and the Australian fishing industry. So Austral being the first seafood company to sign up as supporters of the Marine Stewardship Council, and then also as the world's first carbon neutral seafood company. You identified that there were challenges with sustainability in the industry and chose to drive change. Can you tell us about some of the light bulb moments for you and sustainability, giving you that courage to lead Austral into new territory?
A lot of it, again, the sort of work around the Marine Stewardship Council was inspired by Murray France, so that's over 20 years ago. At the time, many in industry thought it was bad form. You're feeding the alligator; they're going to come and get you. But it wasn't that mysterious for us. It was the fact that in fisheries we want to make sure that we're on top of the science, that we understand the broader impact of the operation on the ecosystems that support the target species that we harvest, and then you want to make sure the governance arrangements are right. That is, that you're able to respond to changes in fishing pressure or techniques or technologies or markets indeed, and still keep a focus on the well-being of the stock. And so it was kind of a pretty easy sell for us, because we said, well, here is an initiative that wants to make sustainability claims rewarding in the marketplace. So we're using consumer-facing sustainability claims to earn a premium, to reward us for the work that we're already doing. So I think we got to the point where it was just a no-brainer, and then gradually the rest of the world got to realise that, well, maybe this is a good thing, and maybe customers do want this sort of comfort, and they don't trust they don't trust me in industry. They don't tend to trust government, but they will trust an NGO. And so when an NGO says this fish is best practice, then there's sort of that feeling, and the transaction happens, and the theory says there's a premium there. But it's not that mysterious. I think more, perhaps slightly more of a stretch has been the commitment to carbon neutral, and I think that was an itch we felt needed scratching. Once we'd been certified for a long time, we felt that to some extent our leadership in sustainability was maybe slipping away as others were catching up, and that's fair enough. That's what marketplaces are about. But we'd also done a bit of work in the social license space. So just understanding what it is around business and industries that can impact us. And I've got to say, one of the formative experiences was the 2011 shutdown of the Australian live cattle export business. That was like an oh shit moment for me. And the takeaway was, first is that politicians aren't going to save me, and if the angry mob comes looking for my head, then I haven't done my job. So we need to be looking hard and honestly at all of the things that we might otherwise consider were our dirty little secrets, and then be seen to be doing something about them. And so there are many issues in fisheries, as there is more broadly in ag, but we felt there was both a need and an opportunity to be greater advocates for climate, given the nature of changes that we're seeing in our oceans and how that directly impacts on us, and the opportunity, which is to link our brands and our, if you like, our purpose-driven business with a cause bigger than us. And so, as my wise old mama would say, Dione, if you want to put your little problems in perspective, go find yourself a big problem. So that's what we did.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put that into perspective.
Mums
that's
are smart,
for sure.
aren't they?
They're good. They know, they've got all the good sayings. Whether it's sleep on it or go find a bit bigger problem. They know how to put things into perspective, that's for sure. So that's probably covered off on a lot of that sort of external communication. So flipping it and touching on the importance of internal communication and leadership in an organisation. I'd love to know how you engaged the whole team, who I'd imagine are normally water dwellers working in fisheries, in a tree planting expedition.
Ooh, well, we'll go back to that. Question's in two parts. So the first part is the catalyst, and one of the catalysts for kind of making the distinction was, again, back in probably 15 years ago, we had a series of incidents where within the space of a few months we'd broken fisheries regulations. We'd either fished inside a closure zone, somebody put some pots in a marine protected area, but there was 3 incidents. So at that stage, the regulator, we've always had a good relationship with the regulator, and 1, they're happy to sort of let through to the keeper, and 2, it's like, ooh, what's going on here? And then 3, it's like, no. So we had to get in a huddle, think about what it was that we were missing. So a few of us were out leading the charge and saying all the good things, but there was this disconnect between the men and women at sea, who, as you say, very independent. They don't come and sort of share a chat around the water. What's so scary about being in the sustainable seafood business? And at that stage, it was, again, a bit like the whole MSC thing, a little bit heathen talk. But we said, no, we're going to grab this. So we changed the logo. We put sustainable seafood on the tagline. We took out a year-long series of ads in the Weekend Australian magazine, declaring ourselves. That's like a bit like coming out, right? So my name's David, and I'm in sustainable seafood. It was a bit courageous at the time, but what it meant was that's us. You know, we're not hiding this. We're not just sort of whispering in the shadows that we're into sustainable seafood. And so we wrote to all of the crews, we wrote to all of the customers with copies of the ad. We wrote to all our suppliers saying this is what we're about. So we just shouted it, and I think that was an important beginning in the journey. It kind of got easier from there, and it's a pretty easy sell to invite a whole bunch of fish people into the desert for planting trees and eating carbon neutral seafood and drinking adult beverages, and that's been really nice. And you know, I defy anybody to go onto that project and not have the hairs on the back of their neck stand up when you see like the before and after of what that investment can do, and those sorts of things. And this is a big issue. This goes beyond just fish or seafood, but I think it is increasingly important for business to be progressive. Your generation demands the industries they work for are doing the right thing, that they want to be part of pushing that progress. And it's for that reason that companies like Dione struggle to get graduate engineers, and that increasingly will be the case for a lot of our aging old world industries.
Yeah, and everything's, whether people are doing good or bad things, all that information so easily accessible and in real time, for example, on social media. So, yes, it's just
and it is a generational thing. So you know the fact that you're doing this, evidence is that it's that restless ambition in you guys that it's not satisfied with just taking the forelock, and if it's the pay packet's all I care for. It's pay packet. I think ranks about number 5 behind feeling like you're doing something worthwhile.
Yeah, it certainly, there's certainly been some really well identified differences in generation. So it's a good one to be part of, I guess I'd say.
Yeah.
So tapping into you and the stuff that you consume, are you a reader or a listener of podcasts?
Ooh. Yeah, readers are leaders, leaders are readers. Podcasts, yeah, I'll ride my bicycle and tune into an audio book. Podcast reading. So you want to know some titles? Is that
so can you tell us about some of the titles that might have defined some of your thinking?
Big influences. I've got probably half a dozen that kind of have moved me. So in the idea around business, people, planet, profit kind of piece. There's a book called Green Giants. I can't remember the author, but she did a great job in basically wrapping up the essence of companies like Unilever or Tesla, who have put why at the very centre of their being, and who have outperformed their peers in those business classes, and I think that's really powerful. So that's the idea that, and I actually really believe this, that the business that's not relevant to the communities and the environment, they're really on borrowed time. Again, your generation is going to bring them undone, but what's more exciting around that is the idea that that's not a zero-sum game. So we can, as businesses, do the right thing for people and planet, and outperform our peers in profit. So that's probably that was a bit of a light bulb moment. Others around sort of leadership and management, the classics, Stephen Covey and can't remember the name of that now. Seven Habits of Highly Successful People. Some of the work from Simon Sinek, The Infinite Game. You know, the idea. I think one of the great challenge for public listed companies is the quarterly reporting cycle. So I've sat here with the great privilege of sitting in a private company, able to make really long-term decisions. And I've got some great examples. For example, 2 years ago, we had catch rates were very poor for our toothfish operation. We were all set to lose, to not catch 400 tonnes, which is like millions of dollars of profit. We had in place plans to mobilise another boat to make sure of it. And we were just ready to make the final decision, and the team, we looked at ourselves and said, this is the wrong thing to do. I wrote to the board and said, we're going to leave 400 tonnes swimming this year. And you couldn't do that. It really takes something to do that in a public company. But that was for the long game. We're saying this is for in the best long-term interests of shareholders, we need to leave this fish behind. And they were really good about that. Other reading, some of the powerful influences has been the work that Swedish scientist Johan Rockström has done together with ANU Professor Will Steffen around planetary boundaries. I don't know if you've seen any of that, but that's a really nice scorecard as to how humans are messing up the various elements of the business of the planet. And then there's folks like Brené Brown and Fearless, like the courage of sharing, and the courageous, fearless sharing. And there's some others. I think things get a bit heavy when you start talking about Eckhart Tolle, or I've just put down a book called Upheaval by Jared Diamond, and that's kind of topical around what's going on with COVID and some of the societal challenges, whether we come out of this in good shape or otherwise.
Yeah, oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing some of those titles that have shaped your thoughts, and I'm sure there'll be plenty for our audience to tap into if they haven't already.
Indeed.
A couple of finishing questions, probably stepping back and looking at that bit bigger picture. And I've got one for you around agriculture. If the entire agriculture industry were more curious, what could we do better?
We'd be training people better. Wow. Yeah. So I reflect on what's got to happen in the next 30 years. If the virus doesn't wipe a few more of us out, then the planet's going to be trying to feed sort of 9.5, 10 billion humans. Agriculture's got to step up in so many ways, and it's such an exciting opportunity. I think ag graduates should be coming out with a whole range of skills and understanding. So whether it's the technical side of remote sensing and monitoring, some of the incredible work that's going on in genetics and the use of CRISPR and that stuff, and there's ethics that all wrap around that. The whole human nutrition thing, the idea that food can fix it, and that basically sweeps across challenges for human nutrition, both the fact that right now there's a billion that are undernourished, another billion that are overweight. That food contributes about 1/3 of all global greenhouse gas production. It contributes to most of the biodiversity loss. There's some really exciting times ahead for young people in ag, and that relentless curiosity will be one of the great gifts.
Yeah, great. And another one, well, here's the one that I'd like to finish on for you. After so many years with the same company, which is an amazing achievement, what drives you?
Yeah, you could say I'm not very good at job interviews. That could be one conclusion. I consider myself incredibly fortunate. The freedom I have in this business is without parallel. I am grateful for the trust of my board and shareholders. I've been a bit lucky. We've got a stable of products and some good people that have allowed me to do the things that are important. But right now, what gets me out of bed in the morning is the opportunity to use the train set these guys let me play with to make a difference. And if in any way I can help inspire ambition in others through our journey, I'm not about preaching, but if there's bits of our story that become light bulb moments for others, then that's my great source of satisfaction. And including in that is the opportunity to be a sounding board for youngsters that are interested in doing more.
And we're very grateful to have people such as yourself to come on series like this too, to share some of that wisdom. It's been a pleasure to have you share some of your story with us, David. Is there anything that I've missed that you would like to also tell us?
No, you've done a pretty good job. I was just going to acknowledge your detailed research and your maturity beyond your years, and the great contribution these kind of conversations can make.
Thank you very much. Well, and thank you for joining us for this Leadership is Language episode. I can certainly say that in this short time, I've learnt so much about using language for collaboration and harnessing common and shared goals, and also having the courage to pursue ideas which might not necessarily be the norm for your industry. So I think there's something that anyone who's had a listen can take on board, no matter which industry they're in. And I really appreciate you sharing that with us for our audience. So thank you very much.
Pleasure, Dione.
Wonderful. Well, I shall let you get back to finishing your day in the West.
Another Zoom call.